cologne and last-minute regrets. Her hands were wrapped around the handle of a small black suitcase, fingers trembling though the air inside the terminal wasn't cold. Her eyes didn't blink much. They stayed fixed on the family across from her, 3 kids, a golden retriever in a carrier, and a woman in a velvet red coat laughing too loudly at something her husband just whispered in her ear. The girl, Isla, tightened the scarf around her neck. It was red. Not the cherry red that smiled in department store windows, but a muted, wine-colored red. The kind that remembered too much. It had been knitted by someone once. Someone who'd said they'd always come back. The scarf still smelled like that December, cinnamon and disappointment. She blinked, finally, and took a step back into the shadow of a vending machine. She wasn't hiding. Not exactly. But something about the light made her feel like she should be smaller. "I'm not crying," she told herself, though no one had asked. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a snowflake hit the glass, then melted instantly. Then another. Then 1,000. The sky was falling apart in quiet pieces. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't check it. Instead, she watched the family again. They were taking a photo now, by the Christmas tree near the cafe. The mom was holding the youngest child. The dad's hand on her lower back like a promise. Flash. Smile. Laughter. Isla's breath caught. It was the kind of photo they'd frame. The kind of photo she would never be in. She had paid their electric bill 3 weeks ago. Quietly. Like she always did. There had been no "thank you," only a confirmation email with her bank balance politely shrinking. She hadn't been invited to Christmas this year. Again. But they'd let her pay for it. "That's love," her sister had joked once. "You always show up, like a utility bill." And everyone had laughed. Except her. The scarf slipped from her shoulder. She caught it fast. Her hands were shaking again. This time she didn't try to stop them. Behind her, someone shouted a name. A reunion. A sob. The clatter of heels running across tile. She didn't turn. She didn't look. She only tightened her grip on the suitcase. It had a crack near the bottom. One wheel dragged when it rolled. But she never replaced it. It reminded her of something. Maybe herself. The man from the photo pulled out a credit card at the cafe. Isla saw the glint of it in the light. She wondered, briefly, if he knew it had been her money that kept their fridge full last month. Or if it had even occurred to him. He kissed his wife's cheek. Isla looked away. Someone called for boarding. Flight 217 to nowhere that mattered. She didn't move. Not yet. The scarf slipped again, falling into the crook of her arm like a heartbeat. Her eyes finally closed. Just for a second. Just long enough to feel the way the air moved when someone walked past. How it shifted, then settled again. There was a child crying somewhere nearby. A lullaby being hummed behind her. The Christmas tree lights blinked once, twice. Then went still. She opened her eyes. But she wasn't watching the family anymore. She was watching her reflection in the window. And the ghost of someone she used to be, just over her shoulder, smiled at her with the kind of sadness that lives forever in old photographs. The gate agent called her Ro. But she didn't step forward. The suitcase wobbled as she dragged it down the boarding tunnel. One wheel caught on the metal groove again. That faint thud-click sound. Like a heartbeat with a limp. She didn't fix it on purpose. Her dad had given her that suitcase the day she left for college. The cheap kind from a discount store, with plastic that scuffed if you looked at it too hard. But he'd smiled like it was something more. "It's not about the suitcase," he'd said, one arm around her too tight. "It's about where you're going." Make sure you go far enough that you miss it, but not so far that you forget. She had missed it. She had missed everything. And now she was walking down a tunnel toward nowhere, pretending her body wasn't made of splinters. A man stepped aside to let her pass. She caught his eye by accident. He didn't smile. Just looked at her, quiet and still, like someone watching a wave pull back too far. She turned away first. Row 18. Middle seat. Of course. She tucked the suitcase above, the cracked wool catching on the edge. She sat down without waiting for anyone to offer help. The red scarf slipped again, caught between her shoulder and the cold vinyl of the seat. She adjusted it with the same motion her mother used to brush hair behind her ear. That same flick. That same care she hadn't felt in years. Outside the window, the airport lights blurred like smeared stars. She imagined them as camera flashes, or maybe candles. She hadn't lit a candle in a long time. Too many bills. Too little time. She remembered the message last month, her sister, typing fast, full of praise and fake warmth. I know you're busy, but Mom needs help with the mortgage again. I told her you'd probably cover it. You always do. You're amazing, Isla. We love you. Sparkling heart, there hadn't been a follow-up. Just a Venmo request and silence. The woman next to her was already on the phone, laughing softly, whispering, I'll be there soon. Save me a slice of pie, okay? Isla looked down at her hands. They were clean, neat, but one knuckle was bruised from carrying groceries too long without a cart. Another had a hangnail that she hadn't gotten around to clipping. She curled them into fists, quietly. She remembered Christmas at 7 years old. Her dad handing her a cup of cocoa in a chipped snowman mug. Her sister's voice in the background, singing off-key. The dog barking at the tinsel. No photos. Just the heat of love that didn't need documenting. She missed that version of life, the kind where joy didn't need witnesses. Now joy was something curated. Framed. Cropped. Tagged. And somehow she was always behind the camera. Holding the receipt. The stranger across the aisle looked at her again. Not in a creepy way. Not even in a curious way. Just, noticing. Like maybe he recognized something in her. Like maybe he knew what it meant to board a plane with only a scarf to hold on to. She looked away fast. Then the announcement came. Ladies and gentlemen, due to heavy snow in the northeast, we are currently on a delay. Estimated departure time, 45 minutes. A groan passed through the cabin like a tired wind. The woman beside her sighed. The man across the aisle didn't move. Isla just stared at her reflection in the darkened window. She thought about getting off the plane. Just stepping back into the airport. Disappearing before anyone noticed. Going somewhere else, anywhere else. But she didn't move. Her fingers reached for the scarf again, running the threads between her thumb and forefinger. It's just a delay, she whispered. To herself. To no one. Still, she didn't put on her seatbelt. And the man across the aisle? He was still watching her. Not saying a word. The plane hadn't moved, but the world outside was already shifting. The snow had thickened into a slow, white curtain, falling steady against the window like static, soft, relentless. Somewhere beneath it, engines hummed low, trapped between effort and stillness. Isla traced her fingertip along the cold glass, the condensation blooming like breath. She hadn't said a word in 20 minutes. Neither had the man across the aisle. She didn't know why she kept glancing at him. Maybe it was the quiet. Or the fact that he hadn't pulled out a phone or headphones like the rest. His hands rested on his lap, still, tanned, slightly calloused. Working hands. Real hands. His coat was fraying at the edges, threadbare at the elbows. A small tear near the cuff had been sewn up in navy blue thread, mismatched but neat. Isla caught herself staring. She looked away. But then he shifted, leaning forward slightly, and something fell from the inner pocket of his coat. A photograph. Old. Bent at the corners. Edges soft from being touched too often. She couldn't see much, just the flash of a little girl in overalls and a woman beside her, wind-blown and laughing. The kind of photo that survived wallets and washing machines. The kind someone couldn't let go of. The man picked it up slowly, thumb brushing across it with the kind of care you don't fake. Isla turned back to the window, suddenly breathless. That scarf around her neck, it felt heavier now. Like it was tied not to her body, but to the weight of choices she couldn't untangle. Her mind pulled her back, to her father, saying goodbye on a rainy platform. To her bank app blinking red. To the Christmas card she never received. To the little cousin she'd only met once but whose braces she helped pay for. Her seat felt too small for everything she carried. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, flickering once, then settled into a low, amber glow. Thunder cracked somewhere distant, too far to shake the plane but close enough to feel in her chest. She glanced at him again. This time, he caught her. Their eyes met, brief, quiet. Not intrusive. Just, human. He didn't smile. Neither did she. But something passed between them. Something unspoken and impossible to define. Recognition, maybe. The kind you feel when you see a wound on someone else and realize it's shaped just like yours. She looked away, swallowing the lump in her throat. Then, you thinking of getting off? He asked. His voice was low. Not deep, but steady. Lived in. Like old wood floors that creak just right. She hesitated. I don't know, she whispered. And it was the truth. She had a hotel waiting at the other end. A room with beige curtains and a mini fridge that would hum too loud. A room she could afford because she'd said no to herself all year. No to new shoes. No to birthday cake. No to telling anyone how tired she really was. But now, sitting here in a plane going nowhere, with a man who hadn't asked her name but somehow understood the quiet, she wasn't sure what she was chasing anymore. Or running from. Rain hit the window harder now. Sheets of it, like something being erased. He turned toward her slightly, but didn't speak again. He just opened his wallet slowly and tucked the photo back in. And that's when she noticed it. Next to the photo, barely visible, a folded receipt. A donation to a children's shelter. Dated December 23rd. The name on the receipt matched the airline ticket still tucked into the pocket of his coat. He had come here to leave something behind too. She didn't ask what. Didn't need to. The engine hummed again. The captain's voice cracked through the intercom, but the words were muffled by the roar of wind and the war inside her chest. She reached for the seatbelt. Paused. Her fingers hovered. Outside, the snow erased the runway. Inside, her breath caught, and for one long, impossible second. She wondered if she stayed still long enough, would the world forget to move without her? The plane never took off. An hour passed. Then two. The snow outside devoured the runway lights one by one, and inside, the passengers began to wilt, restless limbs, forced sighs, irritated taps against seatbacks. Isla sat motionless, her hands clutched in her lap, nails pressing red crescents into her skin. Somewhere near the front, a woman muttered under her breath, too loud for it to be private. Some of us have families waiting. As if that was something everyone had. Isla flinched. Her breath fogged the window again. She couldn't even picture what waiting looked like anymore. The scarf slipped for the third time. It hung now, limp against her side, like it had given up trying to stay wrapped around anything. She suddenly couldn't breathe. The air felt too warm. The walls too close. Everyone's voices too sharp, too thick, with the assumption that someone was expecting them at the other end of this delay. No one's expecting me. The thought came sharp and sudden, like a paper cut across memory. She stood. Quickly. Too quickly. The man across the aisle looked up. She didn't meet his eyes this time. She grabbed the suitcase handle, yanked it hard, nearly stumbling as the cracked wool caught again. It didn't matter. She needed air. Movement. Anything but this quiet that kept pressing against her chest like a scream trying not to be heard. She was halfway down the aisle when the gate agent's voice came through the speakers again, cheerful and false. Passengers are welcome to deboard while we wait for updates. Please bring all personal belongings if you choose to exit. People stirred, grateful for the permission to move. Isla stepped onto the boarding ramp. Cold air rushed in through the seams, hitting her like a slap. Her scarf fluttered loose, caught by the wind, dragging behind her like a wounded flag. She didn't look back. She reached the gate and kept going, past the holiday signs and blinking lights that looked less like joy now and more like mockery. And then, she stopped. Just stopped. In the middle of the terminal. Suitcase handle tight in her hand. People moved around her, annoyed. One man brushed her shoulder and muttered, "Watch it." Like she wasn't braking. She turned toward the window. The plane was still there. So was he. Row 18. Still watching. Still waiting. And in his hand, her scarf. She hadn't even noticed she lost it. He didn't wave it. Didn't call out. Just held it in his palm, gentle, like he was trying not to bruise it. Or her. Or something else entirely. The kind of hold that says, "I know this mattered before you ever did." Isla stood still as the world kept shifting around her. Children crying. Suitcases thumping. Announcements blaring. And him. Just him. With her scarf in his hand, and the same quiet understanding in his eyes as before. Some people carry more than just bags. They carry silence. They carry the weight of being the one who gives while everyone else takes and never thinks twice. They carry every unspoken goodbye. Every year they weren't in the family photo. Every time someone said, "You're so strong," but never asked why she had to be. Isla took one step forward. Then stopped again. She didn't go back. But she didn't leave either. Just stood there. Between decisions. Between breaths. Between who she used to be and the person she wasn't sure she'd become. And across the glass, the stranger held the scarf like it had meaning. Like maybe he knew. And maybe he didn't. But either way, he didn't let it go. The terminal was thinning now, people scattering into coffee lines, restrooms, phone calls that started with, "Yeah, I'm still stuck here," but Isla didn't move. Her scarf was still in his hand, and that mattered more than it should have. A text buzzed in her pocket. From her sister, "Hey, just checking if you got the money to Mom. We're about to take the photo, wish you were here." Two hearts. She stared at the screen until her vision blurred, then slowly turned it face down on the cold plastic seat beside her. She didn't cry. She just sat. Until the PA system chirped again, sharp, cold. "Attention, would passenger Isla Henderson please come to gate 9? A staff member has your personal item." Her breath hitched. I didn't drop anything else, she thought. But her name had cracked across the entire terminal like a slap, and now people were watching. Judging. Curious. Some with sympathy. Most without. She stood. Her suitcase will dragged again, louder now, like it was mocking her. Gate 9 was just around the corner, but she moved slow, unsure if she was being called toward something, or warned away. When she turned the corner, her steps faltered. He was there. The man from the plane. Standing beside a flight attendant who gave a tired, polite smile. "Ah, Miss Henderson. He found something of yours." He stepped forward, scarf folded neatly now, but something else in his hand too. A photo. He handed her both. "I think these were meant to stay together," he said. Quietly. She looked at the photo, and the air left her lungs. It was her scarf. But worn by a child in the image. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, mid-laugh, curls bouncing, scarf wrapped around her like safety itself. And beside her, him. Younger. Smiling in that helpless way parents smile when they're completely undone by love. Isla's voice cracked as she tried to ask, "Is this?" He nodded before she could finish. "My daughter. She loved that scarf. Said it made her look like a superhero." A pause. His fingers curled around the memory like it still breathed. "She died 3 Christmases ago. Drunk driver. I kept it because it still smelled like her. Cinnamon and disappointment, maybe." Isla blinked. Cinnamon and disappointment. The same phrase she had thought, alone in the terminal. He smiled faintly. "Strange how things come back, huh? Time loop echo." Her knees felt weak, like the universe had turned inside out beneath her. "You were on the plane. With my scarf." "No," he said gently. "I was on the plane with her scarf. You must have picked it up by accident." A beat. Then, or maybe not. She was shaking now. Too much silence was shoving at her ribcage. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I just found it, months ago. In a cafe. I kept it because I thought someone might come back for it." "They did," he said. Her voice cracked. "You mean you?" He looked at her, steady and strange and impossibly kind. "No," he said. "I meant you." Isla felt her soul split wide in that moment. Because now, this scarf, this piece of wool she had wrapped around herself like armor, wasn't just hers. It had never been. It was borrowed grief. It was borrowed strength. And suddenly, she didn't know who she was without it. "Why were you on that flight?" she asked. He pulled out a folded letter from his coat pocket. Handwritten. Stamped with the same logo as the company she'd just applied to 2 weeks ago, her last desperate shot. Foster Capital Group. He handed it to her. "I was headed to Boston to finalize retirement papers. CEO hands it off at the start of the year. I needed to do it in person. Wanted to say goodbye." He paused. "We just reviewed your application yesterday." Her mouth went dry. "You read it?" "I read you," he said. Isla's chest twisted. "You're the only one who didn't talk about what you deserved. You talked about what others needed." Her hands gripped the scarf. The one that belonged to a little girl. The one that carried cinnamon. And disappointment. And fate. She didn't say thank you. Not yet. There was no space for words in this storm of knowing. He nodded once, gently. "Room 304. Upstairs. Interviews moved here due to weather. I put your name on the list." She stood frozen for a moment. Then, slowly, she turned. And walked. Past the blinking lights. Past the coffee lines. Past who she had been before this moment. Toward the room that would change everything. The hallway to room 304 was quiet, too quiet. The kind that echoed with every step and made you feel like your own heartbeat might be overheard. Isla stood outside the door, the red scarf folded in her hands now. No longer worn like armor, but held like a question. She could still smell it. Cinnamon. And something else now. Goodbye. Her fingers trembled as she knocked. The door opened immediately. He was already there, seated by the window, a single chair across from him like an invitation, or a test. "Come in," he said. She stepped through. It wasn't an office. Just a quiet conference room hastily repurposed. Coffee in paper cups. A notepad. Nothing formal. Nothing to hide behind. He gestured to the chair. "Sit." She did. A long silence. Then he said it, "I'm not going to offer you the job." The words were blunt. Final. Like a slammed door. Isla flinched, but didn't look away. "I figured," she whispered. He studied her. "You're overqualified, undersupported, and exhausted. That's not a hire, it's a rescue mission." Her lips parted, but no sound came. "Besides," he added, softer, "you don't want the job." "Not really." Isla blinked. "I need it." He nodded. "Yes. But needing something and wanting it, those aren't the same. You don't want a desk. You want a reason. A place. A photograph with your face in it." Her throat burned. She opened her mouth to argue, but he raised a hand. Gently. "I didn't call you up here for the job," he said. "I called you up here because you remind me of her." He pulled the photograph out again, the one with the little girl in the scarf. "My daughter never asked for anything. Always gave. Gave until there was nothing left of her but the echo of other people's comfort." A pause. "She would have grown into someone like you. Someone who gives and gives, until the people around her forget she's bleeding too." Isla felt her chest cave in. "You're offering me pity?" she asked, bitter rising like bile. "No," he said. "I'm offering you something more dangerous." She met his eyes. Perspective. Silence stretched. Then, without a word, she stood. She held out the scarf. Slowly. Reverently. Like she was returning a flag to its rightful place. "This belongs to her," she said, voice breaking. "Not me." He took it with both hands, his fingers trembling now too. "You kept it safe," he said. "No," she replied. "It kept me safe." For a moment, they just stood there, two people holding memory between them like glass. Then she turned. And started to leave. But he stopped her, one final time. "There's a girl I sponsor at the shelter," he said. Smart. Quiet. Wears her shoes until her toes poke out. Reminds me of you too." He paused. "She needs someone to teach her how to stand up straight in a world that forgets girls like us." Isla turned, unsure. "I want to give you the donation I would have given the company on my way out. But only if you take it to her yourself." It wasn't a job. It wasn't a rescue. It was a choice. And something inside her opened. She nodded. Not because it made sense, but because it felt right. Hours later, as she stepped outside the airport into the clearing snow, the air hit her different. Not sharp. Just clean. And in her hands, no scarf. No suitcase. Only an address. And a girl waiting to be seen. Back inside, a family posed for a Christmas photo beneath the terminal tree. This time, Isla passed them without flinching. She didn't need to be in their photo anymore. She was about to walk into someone else's story, and this time, she would be the one behind the camera point too.